Welcome back to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio. We've got all of us back in the studio today. We're super excited to come at you and talk to you. Today we have a special episode. Some things we're going to talk to you about are going to be really important to what to listen to. So hopefully you'll get a lot out of it. Before we get into that, though, I just want to remind everybody to go to our website at Prepper Talk Radio. Go to our Facebook page and at Prepper Talk Radio and click on the More button and then go down where it says Groups and join our group, which is Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance, and then hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. And if you're listening out there and you don't like YouTube, just go hit subscribe and then go watch us on Rumble if you would rather watch us on Rumble. The reason why is because we're going to be giving away a Jase case. That's jasemedical.com has a Jase case, which is a year supply of antibiotics. And these are it's not necessarily a year supply of antibiotics, but it's enough antibiotics that if you got that, you shouldn't get more than the diseases that this would cover in a year. If you get more than what this covers in a year's time, you're in bigger trouble.
You're pretty rough. Yeah.
Yeah. You're in bigger trouble than we can help.
Another way to put it is the Jase case is your emergency stash of antibiotics to cover the super what ifs for the year, right?
Yes.
The super what ifs for the next. And the nice thing is it doesn't expire in a year. This stuff, like we had the CEO on with us a bunch of episodes back now. We talked about the actual length of time it takes for these things to actually start decaying or losing their potency. And you've got at least 7 years on everything. Even the stuff you get from over your pharmacist, like you got time, like it'll last.
Mm-hmm.
They tell you to throw it away. Why? Because they don't want it to get in the wrong hands. But if you keep it safe and secure, there you go.
Yeah,
you're good.
You're good to go. So if you don't win, so what we're going to do is once we reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, we're going to look at our group and we're going to download all the names and we're going to do a randomizer and we're going to find a winner. And you've got to be subscribed to our YouTube channel, in our Facebook group, in order to win the Jase case. And then I don't know if you listened to the last couple of podcasts we did with Shane and I last week. We've got Scott back in the house with us tonight. But last week, Shane announced that he's willing to give away another giveaway in this contest of a 5-ounce silver coin. So you guys, between a Jase case and a 5-ounce silver bar,
Yep.
You've got an opportunity to have some pretty amazing winnings here. So go spread the word, get us to 1,000 subscribers, tell your friends, and let's get. I'm excited to get this contest underway. So let's get to 1,000 quick, so we can roll the dice and see who wins.
We need to make that step. That's an important step. We need to get there. So hopefully this will be some motivation for you guys to share it. And this is the actual bar. It is 5 ounce. It's got a little pirate signal on there, like some pirate booty. If you guys can see that, it does say 0.999 silver, 5 troy ounces. So that's it right there.
There you go.
And I will clean my fingerprints off of it for you guys before I send it off. So
awesome. Well, today we're going to be talking about something that I think that's a pretty big and important thing in the prepper world, especially, is the ability for men to rise up and to become the type of person they need to be. We've got a lot of people in the world right now that are trying to make men and masculinity a toxic issue, or they're putting it down, making it worthless, making it so it's not something that we should be proud about. And I totally agree with the fact that if some people and men can become tyrants, and that's not something that we promote either, but there's a definite strength with the sexes, that men have strengths and women have strengths, and we need to complement one another with those strengths. And right now there's a huge push by social media and by the left to just really denigrate and bring down men in their masculinity. And there's a power to being masculine. I mean, how many, we were just talking before we started recording about the pioneers, about the men who frontiered. Those were men that went out into the wilderness, into the woods, and they pushed the boundaries of our country and they fought in the wars. And there's just a need for that kind of a strong masculine role to be a provider, to be a protector, to be a disciplinarian, to be a self-reliant, somebody who can learn skills and develop skills and teach those skills to the next generation. I didn't look up the statistics before the show, but it's been fresh in my mind since I've heard them, that there's a significant percentage of people that will have a much better life if they have both the father and the mother influence in the home. And I think it was a YouTube, or it was a TikTok actually that I read that the numbers were like 60 to 80% of
Yep.
people who end up in prison, or people who end up with problems or addicted to things, or not on the street, homeless, were raised in single mother homes. Not to put anything on single mothers, right? But the reality is of the importance of having a father, a strong father figure in your life and in their lives. And that's what we want to talk about today a little bit, and get into some of the thoughts and feelings that we have about masculinity and being masculine, and the importance of stepping up and being who we're designed to be.
And I think when we look back to, the pioneers, I think some people will think they're rough, right? They're maybe a little crude. They're not unrefined, those types of things. And maybe that was the case. But I think some qualities that pioneers most definitely had are the things, what we're looking for, what I'm trying to gain myself, like the attitude of not quitting. They were kind men. They were very caring men, although, like you say, probably got rough around the edges. That's something, that is not as common nowadays, and you tend to call them hicks and such, or other
rednecks.
Rednecks. There we go. That's what I was looking for. And yes, if some people do have that picture, I'm sure in their mind of a man's man as a redneck, or is just very rough around the edges. I don't necessarily believe that to be the case. For what we're talking about here.
I agree with
What's
that.
interesting is, as you guys know, I've been gone. All the listeners, you guys know, I've been gone. I was in Missouri. I was in New York. I was in Illinois. I was in Ohio. Holy smokes, Indiana. I've just been all over the place the last week, and seeing some of the frontier towns and the history of those frontier people and what was going on at the time. And you go back to the early settlers of the United States even, and you look at how the father and the mother ran their household. The man was responsible to go clear, and look at upper state New York, for example. They had to go clear their acreage of all these hardwood trees before they could plant and grow a garden, before they could put a field to harvest, right? And go through that whole process. It was so much work, and they were strong people. But then you look at the wives, and they were so strong, right? And they had to take care of the livestock. They had to take care of the food. They had to take care of the making of clothes and repairing things in the house. Whereas the men had to repair the house, the barn, remove the trees, everything else, plus whatever their job or their trade was.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at that, and I look at now, and I'm like, man, what are our trades? A lot of us are tapping keys on a keyboard. We go sell stuff, and that's a hard skill, right? Not everybody likes to sell. Selling's a hard thing. But it's like, they're soft jobs.
Mm-hmm. Comparatively.
So we're not as resilient. We're not as tough. We don't work as hard as they used to work to live.
Well, I think a part about that needs to be said is that, the youth, the young men and young women, even the children, became men and women early on in their life compared to nowadays, when you might consider a man or a boy or a girl a woman, through their experiences, through their what they learn through their experiences in not quitting, in the change of their attitude. That's the biggest thing I notice nowadays is the attitude of our youth. They have it so easily, and I'm to blame in my own house.
For sure.
It's difficult to get them to ask them to do certain chores when you can do them so easily, right? And so that's a whole nother topic, but I think the youth is where I'm really
right with this. I don't think that's a whole other topic. I think that goes right with this. I mean, knowing you can do something, but having the attitude and courage to have your child do it, and the patience to let them learn their way through it and fumble through it, that's huge.
Yeah.
And a lot of us lack the patience to do that anymore.
We just want to do it for them.
Yeah. We're like, I'd rather just get it done right, and I'll just do it for them and get it. And I don't want to argue, so I'm just going to do it. I'm like, argue.
Yeah.
Take away things that they enjoy until they realize that they've got to work too.
Mm-hmm.
I had stuff taken away from me growing up, and I appreciate that. I do it to my kids, and my wife's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What?
You're being mean, Scott. Don't be so mean. Why are you so mean?"
You're a
But
tyrant.
they get the work done, and then they're like, "I'm a good helper, huh?" And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Yes, you are."
Yeah.
You know, being a manly man in today's society, everyone wants to say, "Oh, there's toxic masculinity," and it's like, dude, every father I know, they're very caring individuals. They're big teddy bears. Like, let's be honest, you guys are both big teddy bears too. Like, you care about your kids, and you'll sacrifice for your kids and your wife and your household, your home, and we do it all with much less support from society than anyone else does.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've got a point there,
Every
yeah.
minority group has people that are trying to support them and has fundraisers for them, that have movements for them. Every woman on earth has groups going for them, right? I'm not trying to make like this a political thing, but if we look at it, it's like there are so many people fighting for other people's rights. And what's funny is we just had a few months ago Men's Mental Health Awareness Month,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and it was
That's legit.
completely taken over by other movements. And they're like, no, this was more important than Men's Mental Health Awareness
Yeah.
Month. And yeah, when we're struggling, who do we talk to?
Right?
Who do we get to go to? We're told we're toxic masculine on one side, and on the other side, we're told we can't go get help from a psychologist
Because it's not manly.
or see a therapist because it's not manly. And
Mhm.
but if we do that, then we're a wimp or a wuss or some other expletive, right? But if we don't, then we're toxic. So we're stuck in this rock and hard place. It's like, well, where do we go? And I'm grateful I've got friends like you that I can go to, and that you can come to me and we can talk about things and express our fears and our frustrations and not have a perverted viewpoint come back at us and tell us, well, you're wrong for even thinking that.
Mhm.
Instead,
I-
it's, oh man, I can relate. I can understand that.
And that's where the new normal comes in, right? And that's something I hear an awful lot, not just about the economy, not just about politics and those types of things, but actual actions and a way of living, right? That the normal back in the day of the pioneers was, I mean, hard work was the norm, right?
Mhm.
And they didn't shirk it because everyone knew it had to be done. Whereas nowadays, oh, Dad, do I really have to go out with you to go help you at the property? We got to put the insulation up, or we got to get the greenhouse up, and that's hard work, especially when all week long you're at school or whatever, and then in the evening you're playing video games and you're not doing anything physical like they did back then. The new norm
Right.
nowadays is, like you say, Scott, they're keyboard warriors for most people. That's the case.
Yeah.
And so it's for me about fighting that new norm and introducing, and that's really, I guess, what it is, introducing actual hard physical labor into, from my point of view at this moment, because I am trying to get to my homestead, right? Trying to get that place built out is a lot of hard physical work at this point to get that done. And that, I think that's a really important part of raising children is the physical part.
I think a couple of things that triggered this conversation is over the last couple of weeks, Shane and Scott and I have been chatting about, number one, some of the things that Jordan Peterson has come out and said, and some of you hopefully listening to us are also listening to him. If you're not, go get his podcast and his books and make them a priority. If you can, I mean, if that's something that you feel prompted to do. But I remember not too long ago, this guy who was a fighter, he was an MMA fighter of some kind. And he was in the ring and he had just heard, like an hour before his fight, his best friend had committed suicide. And he went viral talking about how men, I would rather have you call me and tell me what's going on in your life than to have you do that. I would rather have you call me and express your emotions and express your feelings and maybe feel a little bit vulnerable, for goodness sakes, than to take your life. And I would love that went viral, because that's a message that I think that we need to really make sure that people know is it's okay. There are days, and Scott and Shane, you guys can totally relate to this, and you know what I'm telling you about, because I've called you on those days. There are days when I wake up and I do not want to get out of bed, and I don't want to move forward, and I don't want to do anything. And so I talk to my wife about it. I open up, I communicate, I'm vulnerable, and immediately the power comes, the strength comes back, the confidence comes back. And sometimes it's not immediate. Sometimes it takes several hours, but it slowly builds back. And It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Even days, sometimes it takes. I mean, it's not always a fast recovery. You know, we've all gone through our fair share of grief and frustration and struggle. You know, how am I going to support my family? How am I going to, well, think of all that and then magnify that in a survival scenario where you now have to try to find food for your family because you didn't prepare during the time of prosperity. Now, if you look at the history lessons, every time there was a time of prosperity, the people who did well were the people who put stuff away for when the lean times came.
Yep.
The best investors invest through both. The best preppers take extra during the good years and set it away. Like we talk about in religion, we talk about our tithing. We put 10% to the Lord all the time. You talk about in finance, you should put at least 10% away to yourself, right? Well, then you should also be putting 10% away towards your food all the time. Get it to where you have a year's supply of food. I mean, we can talk more about this in another episode, but we just went to the Ark encounter, which is Noah's Ark. I think it's in Indiana. It was huge. It was fascinating. And to think about, Noah was in there for a year almost. He was shut in for almost a year. And then he and all the animals, and what did they eat? And how did they eat? And what did they have? You had to take a lot of time and consideration into putting that all together. It took him 75 years to build the thing. You know, he was putting stuff away the whole time. He had to. And so we look at our lives and what are we putting away for our future generations? What class of character are we creating in ourselves and in our children for the future generations? Because that is a responsibility of a man, I think, more than anything else, is to set that level of character for our family. I know my dad will never lie, steal, or cheat because I've seen him go through the best and the worst of times and stay true to that. And that's the class of character that he left. And where did he get that from? His dad, his father, that manly man who more than anything loved God and followed God and followed the commandments. And that's what we as men, we need to be doing better. We need to take our time to really know God, to become a better man, a better husband, a better father. We need to take our time to put things into practice on a daily basis. Like I'm working out all the time now, trying to get that going, studying my scriptures daily. Those are the things that I've got to do to help me stay a good man.
Yeah, the word that I think of, Scott, that comes to my mind is responsibility, right?
Absolutely.
Not just a responsibility to our family, but to ourselves, right? Like you're saying, your own personal improvement, self-improvement. Yes, at this point, could I sit on the couch and cruise through Facebook and whatever and just waste time? Or am I responsible enough to, like you say, go study, go do this, and not just chores around the house? I mean, those they're always there, right? But true self-improvement, and and me being in the middle of my life, I don't know if I want to live to 100 years, right? Being 50, but seeing those things like I could really do better at this, I could really do better at that, taking that personal responsibility upon myself. And it's really truly the same for women as well. I don't want to exclude that. But being us talking about men right now, a lot of this we share the same thing. Men and women do have different things they excel at.
Yeah.
But these types of things, responsibility is same for womanhood as well, right?
It is.
It's funny because like when you're, I was single the longest out of the three of us, so it sucked. When I was looking for someone to marry, I was looking for someone who was strong and soft. Who was faithful, who would be a good mother, who would be a good, excellent partner, who thought a little bit differently than me so that we could have good conversation. So we could bring different viewpoints to things. And she does all that. It took me a while to find her. Apparently she was more of a diamond in the rough or a needle in a haystack than anything else. Like she was difficult to find, but when I found her, I hold on to her.
Yeah.
Right? And because of who she is, I'm able to be a better, stronger man. And she lets me lead. She lets me be the voice for our marriage, for our family. However, sometimes it doesn't need to be my voice. Sometimes it needs to be her voice. But it's the same message.
Yep.
we're sharing. And so having the humility to be able to step back and let the wife, be the front runner for the moment, and you be the front runner for when you need to be, and for you to both have the unified together stance, the joint approach to everything. That's part of being a manly man.
Absolutely. And you're talking about, sorry to interrupt you, Scott. You're talking about, relationships, and, something that comes to my mind all the time is, obviously marriage is hard. Relationships of any kind with my kids, whatever, it's all hard. But the thing is, and I see obviously a lot of families break up, a lot of marriages break up. The thing that echoes through my head on a regular basis is, Shane, why are you doing this? Your life would be so much easier if I leave everything to the wife, or leave everything to the kids, sit on the couch and relax and watch TV, right? And the thing that goes through my mind is that, why am I doing these things? Because I said I would, because I promised I would. I made that commitment. I made that covenant. We'll use that word, right?
Amen.
Because I said I would. And it takes a man to do that every day, day after day, grinding, nose to the grindstone every single day to do exactly what you said you would do.
Yeah,
Exactly. I think something that's important to realize too is that not everybody has an example like that of a man in their life right away. At least not maybe intrinsically, or maybe not from birth, or maybe their dad or your dad, if you're listening to this, wasn't necessarily the ideal. Find somebody in your life that is closest to that, number one. And if you're a man right now and you didn't have a good role model growing up, the good news is you can be the change.
Mhm.
You can be the change in your life. If you didn't have somebody to give you that, go find some way. There's great ways to learn how to become really a kind, strong man that's not going to end up in a tyrant or a tyranny, but it's going to be strong and powerful. And as Jordan Peterson says, a monster under total control.
Here's the, sorry, go ahead.
And so you can do that by watching great videos, reading great books, listening to podcasts like Jordan Peterson's, listening to ours. There's people out there that you can gather with and learn from. It's never too late to learn and to build that. It's never too late to have those influences in your life. Just go find them and do your best to make sure you discern the good ones.
Here's my suggestion. Chuck Norris.
Yep.
I was going to actually go with David Goggins.
That dude's a tough dude too.
He's an animal. He is a monster, no doubt.
And he's a father, and he's a husband, and he came from probably one of the worst backgrounds you could imagine someone having to go through. The situations with his father, his mother, being beaten all the time, and he came out and he went through the grind, and then he's now forcing himself through the grind over and over again to become the best version of himself he can possibly be. I love his book, You Can't Hurt Me. And it's like, you find people who have the behavior, have the mentality, have the mindset, have the spiritual aptitudes that you want and you want to emulate in your life. There's never been a time on earth that we've had those mentors handy like we do now.
Oh yeah.
You don't have to search hard to find good role models and good content to really help build you up into the person you want to be. But it all takes work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just going to come. You have to do it. Then you have to apply the principles. You have to apply the exercises. It's the same thing with prepping. You're never going to get prepared if you don't actually do the work.
Yep.
And just getting a stockpile. Like, this is one of the things I hate about a lot of preppers. They'll be like, "Oh, I just went out and bought a year's supply of food. We're good." I'm like, "Okay, do you know how to cook it?" Yeah, on the stove. Okay, what if the stove goes out? Why would the stove go out? I'm like, exactly. Like, there's a lot of preppers get a bad name because there's a lot of people that do that when they're first new, and they're like, "Oh, I gotten everything." I'm like, "Okay, what do you know how to do?" I think that's the biggest gap in most preppers' arsenal is their knowledge base.
Yep.
They're not diversifying their knowledge, and you can only do that with actual experience.
Yeah,
you have
skills.
to actually do those things to build the skills.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't carry lighters as often as I used to anymore. I used to be a lighter guy. I always had a lighter. I don't smoke. But the lighter was for part of my preps. I have ferro rods in the cars and lighters, but I'm less worried about my ferro rod because a lighter can crack and break and leak out. It'll still throw a spark, so I have to have something that'll catch the spark. But it's like, I don't need all these fancy fire starters. Like, like you can go and buy like bags and bags. Well, here's one. You can go buy bags and bags of stuff like Blackbeard. I love these guys. Cool company, right? Use Prepper Talk, code Prepper Talk, get 10% off. But here's the cool thing. I don't need these.
Mhm.
These are nice to have. But if these are gone, I can still start a freaking fire, guys.
Yep.
Good fire. Why? Because I know what to do it. I don't want to ever be put in a situation as a prepper to think, how do I do this? What am I going to do? I don't know how to do this, or not have a network of people that I can go to and be like, hey, I know you're an expert in this area. Can you help me with that?
Yeah. I think even, worse than that is not having that can-do attitude, right? So there's always something like, something's broken. What am I going to do about it? I'm just going to figure it out. I'm just going to fix it. Right.
Yeah.
And if I screw it up, okay, I'll try it again and try, rather than just giving it up and say, for example, I've got a grinder. It stopped working last week. I got into it, fixed it, made it work. Right. So because I've done it so many times, not necessarily that particular task. I haven't fixed a grinder, angle grinder before, but because I've done other things, I figured let's give it a try. And just to have that attitude, I think that's pretty manly, is to build things, right? To work with your hands. And that's, these are maybe not as important aspects, but definitely an aspect of being manly, if you want to use that term, of willing to get dirty and not feeling fragile. And I don't know, you understand what I'm trying to say, guys?
Yeah.
Not being afraid of the hard work, right?
Yeah.
We talked about this with Cache Valley Prepper, and if you guys don't know who Cache Valley Prepper is, go check out Survivopedia, check out Cache Valley Prepper. It's CACHE Valley Prepper. And one of the things that he brought to our attention was the term anti-fragile.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, that is awesome. And it's a different type of resilience. David Goggins is all about, you can't break me. I'm unbreakable. Then you got anti-fragility, and it's building a toughness in yourself, a resilience in yourself that you can withstand the blows. Being like Rocky, he didn't want to win. He didn't want to beat Apollo. His goal wasn't to beat Apollo in that first fight. It was to go the distance. And so that he lost in that movie, he still accomplished his entire goal, which was to go the distance. I think that's why it's one of the most iconic movies. He knew what he was going to do, and he went and did it. And Apollo Creed's like, every round comes back out like just solid, ready to go, like just until he knocks him down, and then Rocky like gets up and Mick's like, stay down, Rock, stay down, like and Rocky's like, I'm getting up, like he gets up and he turns around and then Apollo's like, and he sees him get up and he's like, what? How is he getting up? That's where we need to be, right? We need to build into ourselves the ability to be anti-fragile, that resilience, the determination. Shoot, I've given up on so many freaking things, and I need to not do that. Like, I've gotten a lot better at that as I've gotten older.
But there is a point when you need to say, okay, I'm maybe not giving up. I'm switching. I'm changing my focus. I
found a better way.
Found something better. Because I think, I've come across individuals in my life where they never give up. They never give up. They never give up. But they never get anything accomplished either. Right. So there is that point. But
you don't want to ride a dead horse.
Exactly. And I know I probably reference the movie The Matrix all too often. Is in the final one, Neo is going in to fight for all of Zion, right? And so he keeps getting knocked down, and then Agent Smith says, why do you persist? Because I choose to, and maybe that's as simple as it needs to be, or as complex as it needs to be, because I choose to. You know something's right, and you choose to do it, and you just follow through and you do it because you said you would.
I love that. Taking personal responsibility. That's so. Today's world, we want to shirk our responsibilities. We want to give somebody else.
Someone else.
Someone else will do it for me or for us. No one's going to come save you. No one is going to come and do it for you. You've got to learn how to do it yourself and take that responsibility. I'm so proud of my, and this is interesting because we're talking about manliness, but I'm going to tell you a story about my daughter. She bought a truck. She was super excited to buy a truck. and she bought this used car truck, and we got a great deal. And she wants to put new headlights in. She wants to put new fog lights in. She wants to put all the stuff. She wants to like upgrade some of these things. And I'm like, I'll be honest with you. I never learned how to put cars together. That was not one of the things I ever learned how to do. And she's like, no, don't worry, Dad. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to watch YouTube channel videos, and I'm going to do it. And bless her heart, and I was really impressed. She literally took out the headlight and put them in with the new ones. She got LED lights. I mean, she just did her fog lights the other day. Like, we were out trying to tinker with it and figure it out. And that it goes back to that can-do attitude. It goes back to look, I don't know what to do right now, but I know I can learn. And if you know you can learn, you're going to move forward and I love what Jordan Peterson says. He says, as you're learning something new, you're going to be a fool in the wilderness for a little while. You're a fool because you don't know what you're doing. You're in the wilderness because you clearly have no idea where you are. But eventually you'll get to the point where you have that competence, and that it becomes unconscious at some point. Unconscious competence is where you need to get to. And it starts with recognizing that, you know what, if it can be done, if I tell my kids this all the time, if someone can do it, you can learn to do it too. I mean, barring, dunking out a 10-foot basketball hoop, like not all my kids are gonna be able to do that. But if other things, like most things in life, if someone can do it, if it can be done, you can learn how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I was trying to think about different examples in my life, not that Chuck Norris is in my life, but just different examples. Of course, my own father came to my memory, and of course, my father-in-law. And if there's anyone that I've ever seen better not think of himself and only think of others, it's this man, my father-in-law. And it's really been quite incredible. I've seen him in a hospital bed, and likely in pain, and say, hey, come here, grab my wallet. Here's $20. Go out and do something. He's just completely selfless. And I think that is a very telling sign of a real man. Who doesn't think of himself. You hear the saying, "We'll give you the shirt off his back," right? I mean, but would you think about that? Would you actually take your shirt off if it's all you have and it's cold, and give it to someone else? That can be a really hard decision. It's not as simple as you may just say, "Hey, I'll give you a shirt off my back." But those people who would truly do that have my highest admiration.
Well, it's being authentically you. In anything, right? He developed that character and was that no matter what. There's the story of the Indian kid that climbs to the top of a mountain. At the top, he finds a rattlesnake. You guys heard this story?
I think so.
Well, he finds a rattlesnake, and the rattlesnake's like, please, it's freezing. It's cold up here. Can you please take me down the mountain? And the boy's like, no. And he's like, please. And eventually wins him over, convinces him, put me in your coat. I promise I won't bite. Just take me down. And he takes him all the way down the mountain. As he's going to take him out of his coat, the snake bites him. And he's like, why'd you do that? And he goes, well, you knew what I was when you picked me up, and slithered off. On the opposite side of that, there's a story of a guy that there was a snake in danger, and he tried to save it. And the snake went to bite him and bit him. The snake was like being in a fire or something was burning. He went to save the snake, and the snake went to bite him and missed. And the guy grabbed the snake anyways and pulled him out of the fire. And he's like, well, why did you do that? He goes, well, it doesn't matter who you are. It matters who I am. Whoever falls in the fire, I'm going to pull out.
That's awesome.
And it's like, whoever made that story up is a genius. Because we need to be that kind of husband, father, man, person, male, female, whoever you are, you need to be the best version of you and authentically you, no matter what. And I think that's one of the things where people get lost, especially today, that we get so lost because we see so much going on around us on social media, in the world news. Like, you turn on any pipeline of information and it's overflowing immediately. And how we respond to that, how you react with those things, it can change who you are if you allow it to. But if you stick to your truth, you stick to your beliefs, you will win the day.
Yep. It's not about what's right. Pardon me. It's not about who's right. It's about what's right.
Amen.
And, when you have humility like that and you say, you know what, I might be wrong here, but let's figure out what's the right thing to do, you're going to go a long way and you're going to get farther ahead. I just as you were talking, Shane, about your dad, and Scott, you talked about your dad. I just want to share that a couple of days, a couple of weeks ago, I was just feeling really down, and I was thinking, I'm 48 years old, coming up on 48 actually in 2 weeks. And my dad's like 80. And I'm like, how did he live 80? I don't want to do another, like I've done 48 and I'm like, I'm already tired, dude. Like, how did he make it all the way to 80? And I called him. I'm like, Dad, I have so much respect for you. Like, you're such a good, just so much respect for how you made it. Like, I asked him the other day, I'm like, how did you get, I was there as a kid. I watched some of the things and struggles he had to go through, and the fact that he kept his resolve and he kept his integrity and he kept his marriage going. And I'm sure there was times, that it all could have been dissolved, and it didn't. And I'm so grateful that that character was built for him at an early age, and that he maintained that and showed me that example. And now I have, I'm working diligently to emulate that same level of character. Yeah. But I appreciate fathers, and I appreciate men, and the role models that they have. Any last minute thoughts you guys have?
Yeah, I got two. I guess I wanted to go back to what you said about Dr. Peterson, about men need to be a monster, right? Just touch on briefly. If you can go find that clip, it's definitely worth listening to. Men need to be a monster, but choose to control it, learn to control it, but have the ability to become that monster to defend your family or whatever that might be. And I know I totally misquoted that. And then I guess my final thought, to our ultimate example of a manly man is of course Jesus Christ, right? Turn the other cheek, is the first thing that comes to my mind is, and that's got to be the hardest thing to do, right? Is when someone takes advantage of you, they take your coat, give them your cloak too, and they slap you upside the face, turn the other cheek. And I don't completely understand that myself, how I would do that. But that is my ultimate goal. I think that maybe I will feel a man, that I'm actually a man when I understand that.
So final thoughts for me are to go along with that. Everything goes back to Jesus Christ, but Jordan Peterson has a really good quote. It says, if you're harmless, you're not virtuous. You're just harmless. Yeah. You're like a rabbit. A rabbit isn't virtuous. It just can't do anything except get eaten. That's not virtuous. His other quote, the monster one, it says, you should be a monster, an absolute monster, and then you should learn how to control it. Jesus had, in the New Testament, he talked about, there was 2 apostles that he called them the sons of thunder. Because they took some ridicule from some Romans and even some other Jews, and they're like, let's get him. And he's like, we're going to destroy. And Jesus is like, no. Have the capacity to do it, yes, but choose not to. Then turn the other cheek. A new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another as I have loved you. Like, we need to become like Christ. We need to use his life as a model for all of us. And love the way he loved, which we don't understand in today's society. It's all about lust and greed and not selflessness, not true charity. That's where we need to work on. That's what we need to focus on. That's what a real man is someone who focuses on that kind of love and charity and devotes their life to God and their family and their country. And that's where I want to leave you.
Yeah, that reminds me of another thing I heard Jordan Peterson said, and he said that in the scriptures, in the Beatitudes, which is Matthew chapter 5, it talks about blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And then he goes on to say that the actual better translation for that is blessed are those that have swords, and know how to use them, but keep them sheathed.
Yeah.
And I would rather be what is the saying? I'd rather be a warrior in a farm,
in a garden,
in a garden, than a gardener in a war.
Yeah.
And so that's what a real man is. A man is somebody who has the capacity and understands they have the capacity to do whatever it takes, but is in complete control and in a loving and kind way, and is humble. Thank you guys so much for listening to us for the last 40 minutes or so. We really appreciate it. We hope you got a lot out of this episode. We hope that you feel like that there were some really good insights, some wisdom, some things that you can do. For the ladies listening, have your husbands listen. For the guys that are listening, let's be better men. Let's step up. Let's do what we're supposed to do. let's just do what we're supposed to do and be good men, be protectors, and let's get, for God, for our families, and for our country. We need to be better men, and we need to
Amen.
step up, and we need to do what we're supposed to do. So with that, have a great week. We'll see you on the next episode. We really appreciate you guys. Take care.